Hi, everyone. So today I would like to give you the hard truth about Marxism in as brief a time as possible. So, in short, Marxism argues that workers are exploited by the capitalists. The goal of Marxism is to overthrow the capitalist system and have workers owning and in control of all the means of production. It's beyond the scope of this video to explain how that could not work, but I do want to discuss their arguments and show how the exploitation argument in particular is wrong. The exploitation argument is the essence of Marxism. The whole theory is based on the idea that workers are exploited. To show that they're exploited, the main tool the Marxists have is what's called the labor theory of value. That argues that the value of something, in this case, things that are produced in the marketplace, the value is based on the number of labor hours that went into making the thing. So if a motorcycle takes 50 hours to make, but an automobile takes 300 hours to make, well, the automobile will be worth that much more than the motorcycle. It's easy to see how that doesn't make a lot of sense. What if I spend many hours producing artwork that I think is great, or whether it is or not, no one else thinks it's great, and no one wants to spend money for it. No one will hand over part of their income for my artwork. That means my artwork has a value of zero. It doesn't have any value in the marketplace. So it is a determination of buyers relative to the amount of supply of something that sets the price. That's called the marginal value. So to use a classical example, if I'm remembering this correctly, it's the water diamond paradox. So imagine I think the argument goes that there's more supply of water in the world in general. Maybe that's not it. Let me go to what I think is the essence of it. The argument is that if you're in the desert and you need something, what are you going to pay more for? A glass of water or a diamond? Because a diamond is overall in shorter supply. It should be worth more. They're more expensive in theory. And so you would pay more for the diamond, right? False. You would pay more for the water. Because given your needs, the water is a lot more important and necessary at that point than the diamond. Same with water during hurricanes in Florida when stores are out of water. A bottle of water goes for a lot of money. So the value of something is based on how much consumers are willing to spend based on how much they want it, what the supply of it is. The marketplace values things. The value is not based on how many hours it took to produce. There are many YouTube videos people are making a lot of money off of that it doesn't necessarily take people a lot of time to make the videos. So it's not necessarily it's not at all the number of hours that went into it. It's whether someone's willing to pay money and how much they value that thing. So Marx essentially gave up the labor theory of value in version 3 of Das Kapital. In a footnote, but nonetheless, he essentially conceded. He had been debating back and forth with Eugene von Böhm-Bawerk, and they had gone to great lengths to dive into that notion, that idea that something is based on the number of hours that went into making it. And Böhm-Bawerk really showed up Marx, backed him into a corner. Marx conceded point after point, to his credit. And in the end, in version 3 of Das Kapital, he conceded enough that it threw his whole theory out the window. He didn't say that explicitly. He didn't say he gave up the whole theory, but he essentially did in few words or different words. So that is why Marxism has never been a thing. It's essentially not taught in school anywhere in the world. I mean, maybe some humanities professors are teaching it. Maybe one or two economists somewhere are teaching it. But in general, it's not part of curriculum, economic curriculum, the world over. No one discusses it. It's not a thing except for amongst Marxists themselves, who insist that the labor theory of value is correct. But the problem is they can't prove it. I myself have spent many hours um, not only studying Marxism, but then talking to Marxists. I've joined plenty of Marxist groups. I found several nice, calm, smart Marxists who are willing to have a detailed discussion and get into the weeds and go back and forth patiently. And even with those people, they could not in any way prove the labor theory of value. They can't show that that's what determines the value of something. And that's important because the labor theory of value is what Marxism rests on in order to argue that there is exploitation. The idea is um, workers spend 100 hours to produce something, but they're only paid the equivalent of 90 hours spent. So let's say it's $1 an hour. So instead of being paid $100 for their output, they're only paid $90. That is what is called exploitation. So as you can see, it rests on the idea that they're not being paid as much as the value of what they're producing based on the number of labor hours they put into it. Their argument has been discredited by plenty of people, and they've essentially conceded they can't prove their argument, but they still claim it. And that's where we are with Marxism. We have a handful of people who believe in it like religion, and they insist that it's true, but they can't begin to prove it. And I've asked many Marxists over and over to please show me the exploitation. I present income statements, which, as you know, is a company's revenue minus its expenses and its remaining profits. And I say, okay, here's an income statement. Please show me exactly where the exploitation is. Which component of this represents exploitation? They cannot do it. They haven't even begun to try. The best they can do is the following. They say profits themselves are the exploitation. So if a company sells $100 in it gets $100 in revenue, sells all of its products for $100, has $90 in costs, capital and labor, total costs, that leaves 10% profit. So the argument is workers are not getting that 10% profit. They're in that money, in reality, and Marxists agree with this, I believe, and my understanding, that money goes to capitalists, to the owners of capital. So see, what happens is every company operates with capital. I mean, watch Shark Tank. They've I can't think of the word, but they've used their own capital to get as far as they are, or parents' capital, borrowed it from friends. They need a lot more capital. They go to Shark Tank to say, I need a lot more capital. I need to grow and expand. I need to buy a plant. I need to buy a warehouse, distribution center. That's the capital. Similarly, their computer, their laptop has to be paid for. And really, in order to spend a lot of time on it, they need to be paid a wage. And so in a company, people are paid wages, even the CEO, they're paid wages. You have the building, you have the factory, the tools, the machines, the computer, the electricity has to be paid for, insurance, you name it. That is provided by capital. And remember, all of those things are paid for before the product is sold. So if you open a new store, you have to buy the shop, build the product, have it ready by the time your first customer comes. So the customer doesn't pay for the product, it compensates after the fact, but you have to have capital in order to produce your goods. So capital is what helps produce goods and services. Workers play a big role, and machines play a big role. The guiding intelligence of the I meant to say the guiding intelligence, direction and strategy of the CEOs. They play a big role, which is why they get paid a lot more. But none of them can do very much without capital. Capital is a key player in producing goods and services. And by the way, it also pays the workers' wages. It is capital that sustains the worker. It's capital that pays the worker for producing the goods that they themselves can buy. So in total, in the aggregate in the economy, capital not only pays workers to work, but it pays them to produce the things they can then take their wages and purchase. So it gives them an income and the products with which to purchase with that income. So capital does a whole lot. Without capital, we couldn't produce very much at all. We would all be living in the woods as hunter-gatherers, or at best, self-sufficient farmers, tilling our own soil and growing what we can, making our own clothes. Capital is, in a way, everything. So the capitalists who provide the capital have to be compensated for providing that capital. They're going without it. They need a rate of return. They need to be compensated. That's what profits are. The company doesn't keep profits. The CEO doesn't keep profits. The company returns a certain amount of its income as a rate of return to the providers of capital. That is what profits are, in short. And it's a hugely important thing. So it's not that workers are not being paid the full share. It's that just as machines have to be paid a share on the income statement, you have expenditures for machines. Just as you pay for machines, you have to also pay for capital. All of the different costs go into producing. Capital is just part of the costs. Lastly, quickly, just to convince you of that, I'll explain. Think of it this way: you're an artist, you're self-sufficient, or you make trinkets or something for someone else. When you sell those, you keep 100% of that labor, right? Let's change it. Let's say you're a plumber. You're a plumber, you're working for yourself, you walk into people's houses and you fix their toilets and sinks. You keep everything they pay you, aside from taxes. Well, what if you want to grow your business and you hire other workers? You have to pay those workers. You might get a cut, but you're paying those workers. What about if you buy tools and machines and a truck for transportation? All of those costs cut into your profit from being paid for your services. So you see, in that way, profits, not wages, are the original form of income. That's the big thing Adam Smith got wrong that led to all of these economic misunderstandings and created Marxism. Profits are the original form of income, not wages. Wages cut into profits. Profits don't cut into wages. So that is Marxism, and we can dismiss it out of hand. None of it's real, and we should. That's it for today. Thank you.